You could see it in his shoulders. Not the celebrate the sack kind of shoulders, but the look of a man who knows when to show up for someone. Myles Garrett didn't walk into the locker room to gloat after 4 sacks and a page ripped out of the record books. He walked in to steady a kid. He walked in to say what every veteran hopes someone will say to them when the spotlight is still hot and the mistakes are louder than the promise. He spoke after the game and he wanted to pin it on himself, and we're not going to allow him to do that. It's a team game. We're all in this together. SI, the scoreboard says Baltimore 23, Cleveland 16. The film tells a sharper story. A defense that kept the team alive all night and a quarterback carousel that imploded at the worst possible time. Dillon Gabriel started, looked efficient, 7 of 10 for 68 yards, but the concussion protocol ended his night and handed the reins to a rookie, making his first NFL appearance. When Shedeur Sanders stepped onto the turf, the Browns from measured to messy in the space of 2 plays. ESPN.com Sanders' stat line reads like a primer on what can go wrong when you're thrown into the deep end. 4 of 16 passing, 47 yards, 1 interception, 2 sacks, a couple of drives that never saw daylight, and a passer rating that reflected a baptism by pressure. He tried, he shook off bad plays, and he tried again, and for that, he got roughed up on camera and in the box score. This was his first real NFL contact with chaos, and the tape will be mercilessly efficient with lessons. BeaconJournal.com. But the human angle is everything here. After the final whistle in a room buzzing with disappointment, Sanders tried to shoulder the blame. That's not bravado, that's ownership. It's a young man with a famous last name and a young heart who wanted to protect his teammates by turning his own performance into a shield. Garrett's response wasn't a PR line, it was leadership. He refused to let a rookie's humility become fodder for a narrative that could crush confidence instead of building it. That moment, the veteran refusing to let the kid fall alone, is the kind of thing that decides seasons more than any stat. SI, let's not shortcut reality. The Browns lost a game they led for long stretches because the offense stalled when it mattered. The defense, led by Garrett, produced moments of dominance. Garrett's night was historic. He finished with 4 sacks, and that 12th sack of the season pushed him into NFL history. The first player since the early 1980s to record at least 12 sacks in 6 consecutive seasons. That's the kind of accomplishment that gets ink and Hall of Fame whispers. And yet, even that milestone felt secondary in the locker room to the bigger picture. Wins, development, and the fragile psychology of a young quarterback room. ClevelandBrowns.com. Coach Kevin Stefanski's message was clear and expected. Dillon Gabriel is the starter when he's healthy. If he clears concussion protocol, he'll resume his role. If not, the Browns will need Shedeur to play through the noise and out of the glare. That's football's modern cruel bargain. Medical realities meet roster decisions, and the calendar doesn't pause for either. The Browns will get clarity on Gabriel's status in the coming days, and that'll determine whether Shedeur gets a proper audition or just a flash-in-the-pan cameo. ClevelandBrowns.com. Now imagine you're Shedeur for a second. Drafted in the 5th round, son of a Hall of Famer, hoisted on a social stage that can be both a pedestal and a trap. Expectations are magnets, mistakes stick to them. The crowd had been chanting his name before he even took a snap. And that kind of attention can be a boon or an anchor. He left the field with raw film and even rawer questions. Pocket feel needs refining. Reads were slow at times, timing with receivers uneven. But he also showed flashes, throws that hinted at the accuracy and pocket movement that made him a draft day curiosity. The work now is quiet. Footwork, progressions, reading coverages faster than the stadium roars. NFL.com. For the Browns, the calculus is brutal. You've got a defense that is playing elite football, a unit that can keep you in games and tilt momentum with game-changing plays. You've got a roster where the offense can't always reciprocate. When your defense is clicking and your offense is a question mark, you live and die by turnovers, sacks, and the occasional special teams punctuation. Garrett's 4 sacks were the punctuation on Sunday, but punctuation doesn't win championships alone. The offense needs to stop producing mini apocalypses at key moments. ESPN.com. The next chapter arrives fast. The Browns travel to Las Vegas, and if Gabriel can't clear the protocol, the Raiders will likely see Shedeur in Week 12. That's a mismatch on paper the Raiders would happily chase. Las Vegas has defensive pieces built to tee off on mistakes and force turnovers at the exact moments a rookie's learning curve is steepest. But football isn't paper. It's 60 minutes of adjustments, coaching plans, and who finds confidence first. If Cleveland dresses Shedeur, expect a conservative game plan designed to hide rookie flaws and highlight safe spaces for him to succeed. If Gabriel returns, the narrative cools for a week and the Browns breathe. The Sun. This isn't only about X's and O's, it's about the culture Garrett is shaping. He's the kind of leader who takes the noise off a young player and gives him room to grow. That helps in the short term, and it matters in the long term. Young quarterbacks don't just learn mechanics, they learn how to stand back up when an entire internet is telling them to sit down. If the Browns get their quarterbacking house in order, whether that's Gabriel's medical clearance or a patient, protective rollout for Sanders, their defense's highs could become championship-level springboards instead of episodic life rafts. SI. The final image from this game isn't a sack or an interception. It's Garrett, still breathing hard, still in his pads, telling a rookie that he's not alone. In a season littered with questions, that single human moment, a teammate refusing to let a young man carry defeat by himself, might be the most valuable play of all. Because wins and losses can be chalked up, measured, plotted, leadership and belief are harder to quantify, and they decide how teams respond the next time the lights get hot. So remember this when you scroll the headlines tomorrow. The stat sheet will tell you one story: Garrett's historic night, Sanders' rough debut, a close loss. The locker room tells you another: a veteran stepping up, a team refusing to let a rookie go down alone, and a season that will be decided as much by moments like that as by any scoreboard. Football will take the records and the narratives. The players will carry the lessons. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati came out swinging with touchdowns on their opening drives, and then the game immediately turned into a punt marathon. But just before halftime, everything shifted when Aaron Rodgers headed to the locker room early, clearly favoring his left wrist after taking a few hits. Pittsburgh still took a 10-6 lead into the break thanks to Rodgers' early touchdown to Kenneth Gainwell, Darnell Washington bulldozing half the Bengals' defense on a 31-yard catch and run, and Chris Boswell knocking through a short field goal. But with Rodgers' status suddenly uncertain and Keyshawn Williams already ruled out with a concussion, the Steelers went into halftime holding their breath. Over in Cleveland, a completely different quarterback storyline was unfolding, and it could become the Raiders' problem next week. Dillon Gabriel left the Browns' loss to the Ravens with a concussion, which meant rookie Shedeur Sanders finally stepped onto an NFL field for the first time. And it was rough. Sanders went 4 for 16, threw a pick, took 2 sacks, fumbled, got hit with intentional grounding, and finished with a passer rating of 13.5. The Ravens even trolled him with his own watch celebration after a sack. But depending on Gabriel's concussion timeline, Sanders could make his first career start next week in Las Vegas. The Raiders' defense would absolutely welcome that matchup. Sanders was one of the most polarizing prospects in the 2025 draft, slid all the way to the 5th round, and looked every bit like a rookie thrown into chaos on Sunday. Yet inside the Browns' locker room, the reaction to Sanders wasn't mockery. It was leadership. Myles Garrett, fresh off a 4-sack masterpiece and making NFL history with his 6th straight 12-sack season,